everyone, it is Brian Kaz here, joined by my friend and business partner Sean Casey for another Webfire Wednesday webinar. So hopefully you guys can hear my voice and see my screen. If you can, just say a quick yes in the chat box. All right, lots of yeses, so that's always a good thing. And looks like we have people from all over joining right now, and I think so far I think the furthest one we have Terry from, I'm probably saying this completely wrong, Schwalmstadt, Germany. All right, lots from UK, Australia, all across the US. Singapore, we have one. Malaysia. All right, so lots of people from all over. So all right, good stuff right there. So we have some pretty cool stuff on this call. I know I'm excited for it because I love seeing data and stuff like that. So last week we compiled the initial start of basically an SEO data breakdown of all these sites that we track. And this week we have even more stuff, which I'll show you live, the actual stats, and I'll give you my interpretation of that as well as some interesting tidbits. And then next week we'll have even more because there's just a ton of data to go over, and I'll basically tell you what kind of action you can take based upon that as well. And I see there's even more of you from Sweden and Holland and even more places across the U.S. So yeah, all good stuff right there. So as always, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can feel free to ask, and if we don't answer you back in the chat right away, we will for sure live at the very end of the call as well right there. And yes, these are all recorded, and usually within about 24 hours we'll have it up in the members area, so you can go there and see the past recordings and all that good stuff right there. So without further ado, we can get the show on the road. This will be about 3 mistakes we still see and more SEO data, part 2 of 3. So once again, welcome to the Webfire Wednesday webinars. Again, it's every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll host a live training and or Q&A call for Webfire members. These trainings will either feature myself, Brian Kaz, my partner, Sean Casey, both of us at once, or occasionally a featured special guest if we think that their expertise would be of value to our members. If you're here or registered for this series, you'll get a reminder each week so you don't forget. But if you can't make one, we'll have the recordings in the members area within a day of any of the calls under the training tab on the left side navigation bar. Use these calls again as an opportunity to get even more training asks, strategy type questions, get feedback, or make suggestions on what else you'd like to see. And a special note, lots of you have been asking for like specific training and stuff like that. Make sure that you check the prior trainings because we cover a lot of things, and I'd say like 99% of the stuff that people are asking for, we already covered a great deal, and you can see entire trainings on them, so make sure to check out that. We have them titled and all that, so it's very, very easy to see, and of course we reiterate a lot of the key points as well throughout the calls too, so it's not like we only mention stuff once. On one call. The top then we'll reiterate a few times on several calls, but just make sure to check those. And once again, the Webfire rules to success. Step 1, follow the steps in the trainings that we have. Step 2, don't give up. Seek help when needed, but don't get too dependent. If a quick Google search answers your question, don't get hung up on stuff like that. Again, try to find solutions and don't give up on your problems. Number 3, no whining or negative attitudes. That's the quickest way to fail. If you're looking to be a downer, you'll probably always be a downer, and it'll be far less likely that you'll get anywhere because you'll always look to find the negative side of anything instead of the positive, which can make you move forward. So a couple quick announcements here. As of right now, we are actually doing a couple tweaks to the site analysis tool. That should be done today. In fact, it might actually be done right now as of about an hour ago. I was told that it should be done within an hour or so. So probably by the end of this call, we'll have some minor tweaks done there. Nothing else to worry about too much. We're just tweaking a handful of things there. And we still have, like we said, a .edu and .gov tool in the works where it can find places of authority that you can get free and easy authority backlinks. And we have a schema tool in the works as well, which is another cool way to rank several of your pages much more easily in the search engines, especially the ones where like it will list your site and then it'll list a bunch of other links within your site there too on Google and such. So that's pretty cool right there. We'll have that out soon as well. And of course, as always, as of a few weeks ago, we have a new Facebook group page, which of course you can get to at getwebfire.com/FB group. Again, that's completely free, and there's just extra stuff there if you have like other questions, or we give tips and stuff, or members also help each other there too. So it's kind of a cool place to go to and see some announcements and stuff like that. And at the end of the call, we'll do a cash giveaway as well. So make sure to sign up for free now if you want to be a part of that. Again, that's just getwebfire.com/FB group. And also, we have 2 masterminds coming up as a quick reminder. We have one in Vegas, which will be Sunday, June 26th. So coming up right there. And we have another one in London, UK. That will be Sunday, July 10th. So coming up right there, and not really a lot of spots left, but if you're interested in that, make sure to take advantage of that now, because the masterminds will only be a small handful of people, usually like three to 5 people. So I mean, make sure to jump on that if that's of interest to you. The stuff you'll learn at those is how to increase the price and value of anything you sell, how to more easily cut deals with big players, how to buy even big sites or businesses for essentially no cost to you, which is a killer trick, why you're wasting 80% of your ad spend on Facebook, who are the top places to buy quality traffic and leads and such from, how to build and optimize your sales funnel, the quickest and easiest ways of building a list, and more. If you're interested in either of those to apply, just email brian@webfire.com and tell me a bit about yourself, your business, your obstacles, and your biggest successes as well. So the masterminds, they're not cheap, but they're well worth it, because again, it allows us to do hands-on, one-on-one with your businesses. So a lot of places will charge like $25K plus. We're not anywhere near that right there, but it will be in the thousands, but not insanely high there. But the value there is absolutely huge, guys, and gives us a chance again to work one-on-one, with your businesses. So instead of just giving general examples, we can focus on just you, and we can focus on kind of everything that we do, and kind of behind the scenes on a lot of cool stuff. So good example is a mastermind is not about, hey, here's how you do a Facebook ad. It's more, hey, here's the specific kind of targeting that we're basically doing. Here's the age group that we're basically going for. Here's the type of ad that seems to get the best results. Here's a few tricks here. It's more like, actual advanced info that can greatly increase the results that you get. So if you have a business or have existing skills or sales or anything like that, make sure to reach out to me right there, and I'll tell you if you're a good fit or not. Because obviously, if we can't help you, we don't want to have you there, not because we don't like you or anything, but because we only want people there that can get a quick ROI, oftentimes almost immediately. Like we had guys in the past, there was one guy that said, with a handful of easy tweaks that I suggested to him, he gave me credit for helping him make 6 figures additional income minimum just in about 2 or 3 months time off of that right there. So pretty cool stuff right there. On top of that, we also have London and Atlanta workshops. So workshops are more, essentially the difference for those of you that are basically curious. A workshop, there's a lot more people, usually like 100 plus, and it's more, you get like general tips and advice. It's more like, hey, here's how to do, Facebook ads, or here's how to do this. And masterminds are more like advanced stuff where we work one-on-one specifically with your business and how you can grow specifically your business with ideas tailored towards you. But if you're interested in our workshops, you can check out more at getwebfire.com/event. Again, that's getwebfire.com/event. We have one in London coming up in a few weeks there in July, the 8th and 9th, I think, of July. That's Friday and Saturday. And then we have one towards the end of August as well in Atlanta. Actually, that's Sean's hometown right there. So we have one there as well. So make sure to check out that if that's of interest to you. Again, you can just go to getwebfire.com/event. So if you want to attend the workshop, you can register now for free again at getwebfire.com/event. Or,
hey, Brian, and those links are in the chat post right at the bottom of the GoToWebinar widget for you guys. You can just click on them.
Cool. All right. So that makes it even easier right there. So again, the workshops are a great way to learn how to get more traffic and leads, how to increase your sales and all that. If you want more one-on-one help, at like a mastermind, if you want to network with a like-minded, larger players and all that, you can apply for the mastermind by emailing me at brian@webfire.com as well right there. So with that aside, let's move on to the training for the day, followed by our Q&A, where you can ask anything that you want. So here's what you'll learn today. First, I'll talk about 3 mistakes we still see a lot of. Second, I'll show more SEO data live. There's some cool stuff right there, and we'll have even more next week as well. And then we'll go into a Q&A. So any questions you guys have, you can ask, and we'll have a lot more time for a Q&A this call compared to some prior calls where there's certain ones where we have a lot more content, less Q&A. This one will have plenty of time for Q&A. So get any of those questions ready that you have. And with that, we'll move on to 3 mistakes we still see. So a lot of you, despite a lot of our training addressing these things, are still doing a few key things wrong, which are hurting your ranking and traffic chances. So we thought we'd address the top 3 right now. So I'll go over each of these in a lot more detail in just a minute, but here are the 3 common mistakes we still see. First is a misconception of keyword targeting. Second is having a crappy website or content. And third is doing next to nothing and expecting the world. So first, misconception of keyword targeting. You can't just optimize your site for a keyword. It has to be not insanely competitive too if you want the easier chance of ranking. So sometimes people use like the website analysis tool and they'll say, oh, look, it looks like I optimized my site for the keyword weight loss. Well, just because your site is optimized for weight loss or diet doesn't mean that it will rank for that. If the keyword is very, very competitive, there might be tons of sites that are highly optimized for that term. Now, if your site is optimized for a keyword that isn't that competitive, you have a much, much greater chance of ranking for that keyword then. So just keep that in mind right there. But on that note, even when you pick a less competitive keyword, you can't just throw it up as the title tag of your site and expect to rank. The content and everything must reflect the terms you're trying to rank for. Now, oftentimes, if you have, if you're trying to rank for a term, it means you're using it on your site and your site is relevant to that term. So just by throwing it up as the title of your site or having it, within the title of your site definitely can give you a very good chance of ranking on page 1. But we see oftentimes there's guys that misunderstand that and think, well, I can have a site completely irrelevant to this term, but if I throw that term up as my title tag, I can get ranked as long as it's not competitive according to the keyword tool. And that's the misconception right there. So if you're trying to rank for, let's say you say that the term, let's say it's weight loss diets for men. I don't know if that's a competitive term or not. There's just one that came to mind. But let's say you find that, weight loss diets for men. Let's say you use the keyword tool and it says, hey, it's not that competitive, and you throw that up as the title of your site. If the content on your site has nothing to do with diets or nothing to do with specifically diets for men or weight loss for men or stuff like that, you still won't have the best of chance of rankings, but there's a lot of guys that think, well, the keywords tool said it's not competitive, so I threw it up as the title, why am I not ranked? Well, you have to make sure that the content is relevant to that term, that it lines up specifically. So if someone sees a site that's ranked for, weight loss diets for men, what do you think they want to see when they click that? They want to see some tips or actual diets or something that they can lose weight on if they're a guy. Now, I know it sounds kind of funny, but a lot of people miss this completely, and I've even had ones in the past. I was at a workshop once where a lady had a product basically on weight loss for women, and she was trying to rank for a bunch of terms that were like geared towards men, that even contain men in them, and she's like, I don't understand why I can't rank for any of these terms even when I target them. And I'm like, you can't rank for them because your entire site is about women, but you're trying to rank for men. That makes no sense. In fact, it's stupid. It's like, it's like you might say, well, I see that the male market is less competitive here and wide open for this keyword, so I want to rank for all these terms. Well, if your site has nothing to do with that, why on earth would Google rank you for that term? It'd be a horrible, crappy user experience. So why would they do that? Even if you trick them temporarily, it wouldn't work in the long run. So definitely make sure that the content lines up with the keywords that you're trying to rank for. If you have a less competitive keyword lined up with relevant content, it's very, very easy to rank for the vast majority of those terms. You might not rank for like 10 out of 10 terms, but you should rank for the vast majority of those kinds of terms in those cases if you go about it right. So a lot of people are missing, one or, both of the above and think that they're following our training when they're not. So definitely make sure that, you focus on what I just said right there, and you should do more than fine. The next one is having a crappy website or content. Now, some people are optimizing their sites just fine, sometimes even following good SEO rules, like trying to target stuff in their title tags, trying to make sure, that they have image alt tags and, keyword tags and, all sorts of stuff like that. But a chunk of these people sometimes have very crappy websites with very poor content. And that, again, just shoots yourself in the foot, even if you optimize everything perfectly. If your website makes no sense, the content isn't relevant, is hard to read, or contains weird images or stuff that doesn't flow well, people will immediately click back and you won't rank, okay? Because one of two things goes on. First, Google basically has algorithms to try to check this stuff to see if it's relevant, makes sense, and all that. But second, they also test it on real people. So, even if Google tests your site out with top rankings for a while, you'll quickly lose it unless the user has a good experience and stays on your site. So you might temporarily rank somewhere on page 1, and they'll test you out where you can move up or down based upon that. But if you have a crappy site or crappy user experience, you will lose. And the biggest thing, the absolute biggest thing I see is, again, give the people what they want. If you're trying to rank for a search term, make sure that the second they land on your page for that term, that they'd be happy reading and seeing all the stuff on your page there. If they're not happy, if they don't get the content that they're looking for, they'll click and go elsewhere, and you'll lose ranking even if you're optimized for that term right there. I know a lot of times people, they tend to kid themselves. They tend to say, sure, my content's relevant towards that. Why am I not ranking? But if you honestly look at it from like a neutral perspective, a lot of content out there isn't really, what the people want. For instance, a good example here, and this is one that you can like really see well in the search engines. Let's say that you're going on a trip, okay? Like let's say you're traveling to, France or, San Diego or Orlando or Vegas or, any vacation at all. Oftentimes people type in a term like stuff to do in Vegas, or stuff to do in Orlando, or stuff to do in Paris, or stuff to do in London, or some term like that. And if you look at the pages that rank, what do the top sites have in common? Typically, there's sites that say, hey, these are the top 10 things to do in Paris, or these are the top rated things to do here, or here's a bunch of fun stuff that you can do here, or some term or some page that's relevant like that. But a lot of guys that we often see will have, like, let's say they have a site on, I don't know, let's say they have like an arcade. Okay, let's say they own an arcade, and bunch of games and stuff there, and it might be a super fun thing to do, but you probably won't be like a #1 rank if someone types in a term like top things to do in London. Now, you might be the most awesome arcade in the world, and you might be really fun, but oftentimes it's the sites that list like a bunch of stuff that would give the good user experience. Because even if you get ranked like, let's say, #1 or 2, if someone is, let's say, like an 80-year-old couple, and they click your site and say, hey, I want to search for the top things to do, and the first thing I see is an arcade site, they'll say, well, I hate arcades. That's nothing to do with me. I'd hate that. And they immediately click back, which gives them a bad user experience. Whereas if they go to a site that talks about, maybe the top 10 things to do in London, and 1 or 2 of those talk about arcades or stuff like that, then that's a good user experience, because they see the stuff relevant to them too on that list as well. So keep that in mind as well. Sometimes you need relevant content, and you want to try to gear it towards what would make the user actually happy, and not just what you would want to rank for. Because sure, I mean, the guy that owns the arcade might want to rank for every term, like the top stuff to do in London, the top sites to see, and like all this stuff. But at the end of the day, this page really isn't relevant towards all that, or it's not geared towards good user experience. He probably won't rank well. Whereas if you had a term like arcade in London, yes, obviously he would have a very easy chance of ranking like #1 in Google for that kind of search term, right there, because it'd be a good user experience if they found his site, because it lines up perfectly with that. So again, keep that in mind right there. I mean, more and more Google's looking at what the user experience is on any sites that rank. So if you have a crappy website or irrelevant content, or content that's not good and does not flow well, you are in for a bad time. And even if you have like, a site that's, optimized well and all that, you just won't get that far. And I know there's oftentimes guys that kind of have hurt feelings, if you tell them that their site, is kind of bad, or you tell them the content doesn't flow well, but, you sometimes have to, basically not take everything so critically and take it as actual advice on what you can do. I mean, I've had probably more than one client who, in the nicest way as possible, I'll say, basically your website's kind of crappy. Here's what you should do to fix that, and they'll be offended because, you think their site's crappy, but as does almost everyone else that does that search and comes across their site, which is why they're probably not ranking well. So again, just keep that in mind and try to view your site from like a neutral, almost like a third perspective as well. Like, try to put yourself in the shoes of the searcher and say, should you really rank for that? If you were in their shoes, would you be happy seeing your site? So definitely, think about that right there. And I think you'll have some good take-home lessons from that there. And the last one that we often see is people that, literally do nothing, or they think that if they're doing nothing at all, that they'll get everything done, and that they'll get like amazing results and all that stuff. Well, it takes at least a little work to get results. It doesn't have to be a ton of work, but if you're trying to take the lazy way out of everything, you probably won't get the best results at all, because there's a chunk of people that are trying to take the super easy way out of everything. For instance, they'll hear that we have a site submitter, which is basically a tool that alerts the search engines and other sites that you have like contents and stuff on your site, and it can help get you ranked faster. So they'll submit their site without optimizing it or doing SWOT and expect to magically get ranked and get lots of traffic. Even though we've explained over and over and over and over again, it's kind of like, if you're a sales guy and, you walk up to a house and knock on the door, if you don't have anything to sell, you won't make any money, okay? And if there's a tool that allows you to knock on 10 doors at once, if you don't have a sales pitch or anything to sell, you still won't make any money. If there's a tool that helps you knock on 1,000,000 doors all at once, and you still don't have a sales pitch or anything to sell, you won't make any money, regardless of how many doors you knock on. That's kind of the way right there. I mean, tools like that can help get attention and stuff faster, can help you rank faster, but you still have to optimize your site too to increase your chances of actually ranking. There's a lot of people that just use like one of those and think that's all they have to do. Another thing I see is like there's people that will do like a spammy type comment or post without adding any value, and they'll expect to get tons of traffic and sales. If you do a comment where all you do is like post a link to your site, which I've seen people do, even though we say add value, add value, add value, help, help, help. Think of what you can do to help and add value to those posts. There's people that still to this day will just either post a link or they'll post like, the simplest, easiest few words possible that adds no value, and they'll be shocked that they didn't land sales off that. If someone says, like let's say a person says, hey, I'm looking for some advice on what tennis racket is best for me. Here's a bit about my style. Here's a bit about what I like. What do you think I should get? A helpful person would say, well, based upon what you said, you seem to say you tend to hit long instead of short more, and you seem to say that you tend to play net more than you do baseline. So based upon that, you might like a racket like this, or that because of this, and this reason. If you're interested in any of those, you can check them out right here, and then you give a link right there. That's providing value and helping. The spammy comment or post that we've seen people oftentimes do is, a person asks the exact same question, and then you basically say, you can check out rackets here, then you post a link to your racket store. Where it's like that doesn't really provide any value. It comes off as you're just trying to make a buck, and you're not helpful at all. So again, keep that in mind. The other thing too is that people might go after super competitive terms without doing the extra SEO suggestions to compete there. So if you really want to go after a super competitive keyword, you definitely can do that, and it is possible to still rank. So even if the keyword tool says it's super competitive and hard to rank, you can still rank, but it will take extra SEO work basically to get there, like not just targeting the keyword in your title, not just having relevant content, but again, going the extra mile and doing the extra steps that we talked about. And there's a lot of people that just never take the time to do those extra steps, yet they magically expect to rank for a term like diet or weight loss. So we just want to basically address that right here, and hopefully if you're one of those people, we've opened your eyes and you now know essentially the error in that way of thinking and doing, and can now fix that to get better and good results and whatnot right there. So now let's move on to the part that I find really exciting, and that's part 2 of 3 of our data. So what we've been basically doing is we analyze tons and tons and tons of sites, and we basically look at a whole bunch of stuff to see like what is the difference between a site that ranks on page 1, and a site that ranks on page 2 and 3, and a site that's not ranked at all. What is the difference between them, if any? And we have a bunch of stats right now, and we'll have even more available next week, but right now we're looking at member sites. And next week, and on top of even additional data, we'll not only have more stuff on member sites, we'll have data on competitor sites too. So that's like 10 times the amount of data. So that's really exciting stuff right there. So, for every one site that we basically analyze, on the competitor site, we'll analyze like 10 times more. And we'll pull up even more data there, and we'll have even more stuff that we're basically seeing now that we'll share next week as well. But right now I have some stuff that I'll show off. So I'm just going to pause the screen for a second here. And I'm going to bring up our stats page. So just be a second right here. All right. All right. So you should see my stats page right now. You see it, Sean?
Yes, I do.
Alrighty. Just make sure you guys see it. So right here, what we basically did, this is the stats on a bunch of sites that we're tracking right now. So right now, for the sake of this, we tracked about 1,500 sites just as a sampling right here. And then next week, we'll show tons and tons and tons more, because we'll include like the competitors and all that stuff right there. And this is across tons and tons and tons and tons of different markets, niches. And we're basically comparing sites that are ranked on page 1 to sites that are ranked on page 2 and 3 to sites that are not ranked anywhere in the top 3. So I'll just briefly show off the data and explain it here, and then I'll give a summary right here. So first, on sites that are ranked on page 1 of Google, as far as how long their title is, so as far as how long their title tag is, on average, they're about 7 words long, so 6.78, so almost about 7 words long. So it gives you an idea of how long the average title is right there on page 1. And if we look at page 2 and 3, the average is longer. It's 9.5, so almost 10. So basically 7 words to 10. If we look at ones that are not ranked, it's also, it's over 7. So what that tells you, I mean, right now it looks like essentially, you don't necessarily want a super long one, but you don't want it to be obviously too short. So I mean, sweet spot seems to be at least about probably 6 or 7 terms or so right there. So that's just some interesting stuff to note there. Of course, it's not to say you can't have longer or anything like that, but we oftentimes have guys that try to do only like 2 words as a title, and those tend not to do too hot there, because I don't think they really give enough info. So I actually have some words actually in your title right there. The next part, which I find interesting here, is for the next part right here at the top, for the keyword that the user was trying to target. So on the rank tracker, for the keyword that they were trying to target, how many of those sites that ranked on page 1 contained that exact phrase somewhere in their title. So in this case, 2/3 of the sites on page 1 that ranked on page 1 contained the exact title or the exact keyword somewhere in their title. So what that basically says is, if you want to rank, you have a much better chance if you put the keyword in your title. Now, here's the interesting part. On page 2 or 3, that drops down to only about 45%. So there's a 50% increase going to page 1 by, again, being more likely to have the keyword you're trying to rank for in the title. And if we look on ones that are not ranked, it goes down even worse. I mean, right here, less than 18% of sites that are not ranked contain the keyword they're trying to rank for in their title. So right here, and that's not even looking at the competitiveness of the keyword or anything like that, which we can pull that stat later and get even more info and see how competitive the terms are and whatnot. But right here, the overall trend that we're seeing right here is the sites that don't rank hardly at all typically don't contain the keyword in their titles. And the ones
Hey, Brian,
yeah.
I got to interrupt for 1 second, because there's an obvious question that needs to be answered, which is, how do we know that you don't rank when the keyword's not in your title? And the answer is because members are trying to rank for that keyword, and they put that keyword in the tracking. And so if you tell our system, hey, I want to rank for weight loss, but you don't put weight loss in the title, and you don't rank, then we know you don't rank for a keyword you're trying to track ranking for without the words in the title.
Good point. So
yeah, because someone sooner or later is going to ask that question, like, how do you know it doesn't rank if it doesn't rank? And the answer is because we know someone's trying to rank for it.
Yep. So that's a good point. But like right here, I mean, it's crystal clear that the more often you target the keywords in your titles, the more likely you are to rank. I mean, it's overwhelmingly high. 66% of sites that rank on page 1 contain the keyword that they're trying to rank for, and the ones that don't rank, only about 18% do. So, big trend there. The second thing is, and this is an interesting thing which I'll have to explain a bit, we also look at partial keyword in title. So what we mean by partial, if 60% or more of your keyword phrase is in the title, that would be counted as a partial. So let's say you have a keyword like, weight loss diet tips for men, okay? And so it's weight loss diet tips for men. And let's say you rank on page 1 for diet tips for men. So it might not include weight loss, but it includes diet tips for men. So if 60% or more of your keyword is present, it counts that as a partial keyword in title. So does that hopefully make sense? So again, if 60% or more of your keyword phrase appears in the title, we count that as a partial keyword in title. And that's important because, oftentimes if you have a keyword like, weight loss diet tips for men, you might rank for a couple different terms within that phrase, and they might not be an exact match, but it'll be close enough where Google understands that it's probably still relevant and all that. And when we look up here, for sites that are ranked on page 1, nearly 83% have at least a partial keyword in the title. So that's overwhelmingly says, okay, over 4/5 of the sites that rank for a particular term have at least 60% or more of that term in the title on page 1. If we go to page 2 and 3, it drops down to about 73% right here, so obviously still a decent increase right there to page 1. And when we look again on ones that are not ranked, it's again about 23%. So again, obviously, if you're not ranked, it's because you're not targeting, even part of those terms right there. So that's kind of interesting stuff right there. We also, and this is an interesting trend right here, we also looked at keywords in the description. So in the description tag. Now there's some SEO guys that say, oh, that doesn't really matter and blah, blah, blah. And, I oftentimes take stuff, said with a grain of salt because I say, okay, you can have any opinion you want, but at the end of the day, back it up with data one way or another. If the data doesn't back it up, it's just an opinion. So we actually have data to back this up, and just like, I've been saying for a long time, keywords in descriptions absolutely matter, and you can see it right here. Right here, it says about 47.03% on page 1, so it says nearly half of the page 1 rankings contain the keyword that you're trying to rank for in the description, so nearly half of them do. But if you go to page 2 and 3, big drop. It goes from nearly half to only 10% do. Okay, so that tells you if you target the keyword you're trying to rank for in the description too, you're far more likely to be on page 1. And if we go to ones that are not ranked, it's only about 5.5% right there that are trying to target the keyword in their description. So right here, so even from page 2 and 3, you're 5 times more likely to rank on page 1 if you target it in the description of your site. And if you're not ranked at all, you're about 10 times as likely to rank if you target it, on your site to be on page 1. So again, lots of guys say that doesn't really make a difference at all. Well, right here, it's 5 to 10 times more likely. So that's a pretty big difference there for guys that say it doesn't make a difference at all. Again, back it up with data. Here's what the data says. Now, when we look at H tags, which again, you don't even have to know what H tags are. Again, we have the SEO configuration tool that can help with that. But right here for the page 1 sites, we have about just over 42% contain the keywords somewhere in their H tag. And if you look at pages that are ranked page 2 or 3 on Google, we have only about 10% that contain it in an H tag. And when we look at ones that are not ranked, again, about the same. This is about 14% right here, so pretty close to page 2 or 3. So again, what that says, guys are on page 1, it looks like you're essentially, far more likely to rank if you have it in your keyword tag. I mean, we're basically comparing 43% to 10 or 11% right here. So again, it looks like the more that if you have it in the H tags, you're far more likely to actually rank there. I mean, this is basically a difference of 4 times, right there. The other thing to look at right here, we also looked at if the keyword is mentioned in basically an image alt tag. Now again, if you don't know what that is, we have the SEO configuration tool and a tag tool to help you change the image alt tags and all that stuff right there. But right here, of the sites that are ranked on page 1, about a third contain the keyword they're trying to rank for in an image alt tag. If we look on sites that are ranked on page 2 and 3, we have only about 10%. So on page 1, the sites are 3 times more likely to have the keyword in their image alt tag. And if we look at sites that are not ranked, it goes up even more. There's, again, only about 7.5% have it in their image alt tag versus sites that are ranked on page 1, 33% right there. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you obviously right there that, image alt tags obviously matter. There's a lot of people that say, oh, stuff like that doesn't make a difference anymore, yada, yada. It does. The facts speak for themselves right here. You cannot argue facts like that, okay? You can have an opinion, but you have to back it up with facts, which is, again, what we do right here. The other thing, which I found really interesting as well, is we also looked at the Alexa ranking. Now, Alexa is the lower the number, the larger your site is, or the more traffic it gets. So right here, the Alexa ranking on page 1 on average is about 4.7 million. On page 2 or 3, it's about 8 million. So about, almost you're almost twice as high traffic ranking wise on page 1 than 2 or 3. And in ones that are not ranked, even higher right there. So 9.2 about million. So right here, there's a few things that you could take away from that. One, you could possibly say, well, if you're ranked on page 1, you're probably more likely to get more traffic, therefore have, a higher Alexa ranking, and that's probably partly true as well. And we also see that there's also not a major difference between being ranked on page 2 and 3 and not ranked at all, because again, we're comparing about 8 million to about 9.2. So I mean, in both cases, obviously it's better to be ranked 2 or 3 or page 2 or 3 than nothing, but not too far off. But on page 1, obviously it's like twice as high as that with 4.7, because again, the lower the score, the better. A lot like golf. So one way to say, well, obviously if you get ranked on page 1, you probably get more traffic. The other thing, which I think is worth noting and considering too, is that it might be, well, the more authoritative sites that are more likely to have traffic now, Google's probably slightly more likely to favor too. Whereas if there's a brand new site that's has 0 Alexa ranking and anything at all, they're probably a bit more hesitant logically to rank that high, unless there's almost no competition or anything like that. And that's kind of been one of my theories that I've seen too, is that obviously if you're in a very non-competitive market or keyword, even a brand new site can easily rank. But if you're in like one that's a bit more competitive, the more traffic and stuff you have to start with, the more likely Google is to say, okay, well, this is probably an okay site. Let's send them even more. And that's a trend that we've seen on the bigger picture even more. Like, for instance, if you look at the search engines now, oftentimes they're dominated by like the big retail stores, the big news outlets and stuff like that. And because if they have a ton of traffic and authority to start with, they're far more likely to probably favor them too and say, hey, this is probably a legit site and a known site. And again, it's not to say that you can't get ranked as a smaller site. It just says that you have to make sure at that point to have content and keywords very targeted specifically to what the person's searching for to give a good user experience. But obviously, the larger you grow, the more advantage you probably have too in terms of ranking. The other very interesting then is also the keyword density. So this is how many or what like percentage of the keywords of your content contain the stuff that you're trying to basically rank for. And this is another very interesting thing because there's a lot of articles, especially in the last year, where there's a bunch of SEO guys saying keyword density doesn't matter at all. And I always thought that was flawed for two reasons. One, logically it doesn't make any sense. Google wants to know that the sites that they rank for are relevant to the search terms that you typed in. But on that note, I think the reason why a lot of those places think that it doesn't matter as much anymore is because years ago, just by having a certain keyword density range, they would tend to rank you. But now, they oftentimes tend to rank like some of the larger, well-known sites. They tend to rank them sometimes even for terms that they don't really target all that well. So it kind of throws off like the keyword density figure. So you can find some guys that rank that don't even use the term much, but I think if you're a smaller guy, it still makes a major difference. And there's guys that basically argue against that, but that's why we have data to back up what we say. Now, in the past, I've said, it depends upon the content that you have. Like, obviously, if you have like, a 2,000 word article, you don't want to have like the same keyword mentioned a ton over and over and over and over and over again because it just doesn't flow as well. Likewise, so your keyword density for like 1,000 word or 2,000 word article might be a bit less. Whereas if you have let's say you have an article that's only a couple hundred words long, obviously the keyword density would appear larger even if you only used it once or twice. So you have to take into consideration a lot of stuff like that. My rule of thumb always was try to have the keyword mentioned in it at least once, if not more, but try to have it flow naturally too. So like don't have it so like every other line contains the keyword, because if it looks like you're trying to stuff it or you're trying to keyword stuff or mention the same term over and over again, it doesn't read well, and Google has triggers for that. But I also want to see, because there's lots of guys saying that the keyword density does not matter and there's not a difference, I want to put that to the test. So right here, we have the keyword density on page 1 sites is 0.99, so basically 1%, which is the range that we said you should shoot for in most cases is about 1% or a bit more, and that's almost exactly lined up right here. If you look at page 2, the keyword density drops to a 0.67. So 50% or is used 50% more throughout the content on page 1 sites than ones that are ranked page 2 and 3. Ones that are not ranked, there's a keyword density of 0.79. So still that basically says here, obviously ones that are ranked on page 1 use the keyword the most in the content. So that basically eliminates guys that say that the keyword density does not matter at all, because we just showed right here there's a major trend that the winner of all 3 of the categories right here are the ones that used it the most at about 1%. Now it's not to say that you have to use that, but exactly at 1% or anything like that, but have it flow naturally and, at least use it, I'd say, once, if not twice, throughout the content that you have right there, which, for, 100-word article, this would be using it once. So obviously, if you have like a 1,000-word one, I'm not saying use it like 10 times or anything like that, but just have it flow and make sure you actually use it. The other thing, too, is we look at backlinks. Now, we have two stats on backlinks. We have the average backlinks and the median backlinks. And I don't really like to look at the average backlinks, because if there's one site that has like 1 million backlinks and everyone else has like one or two backlinks, that skews the numbers. So it looks like the average might be like, in the thousands, even though most only have like, let's say, one or two. So even though we have the stats for the average backlinks, I like to look at the median backlinks. And that's, what's the most common number that you see. So on page one, for page one sites, the median number of backlinks is 9. So a lot of people thought that number would be much, much higher. It's 9. And there's lots of guys that say, again, backlinks don't matter a ton. Well, we also find that that's not true. If you look at page 2 and 3 sites, the median backlinks is 5. So about half as much as page 1. If you look at ones that are not ranked, same thing, 5. Half as much, again, as page 2 there, or as page 1. So again, the takeaway from that is you don't have to have a ton of backlinks, but obviously backlinks help. Like page 1s have a median of 9, page 2 and 3s and ones that are not ranked have a median of 5. So it tells you, they have about twice as many backlinks right there. So that gives you a pretty cool idea right there. And another interesting stat is if you look at the average backlinks, and again, don't feel like you have to shoot for the average, you want to shoot for the median. Because again, median is the one that kind of shows up in the middle there, whereas the average, one large average can skew the number greatly. We see that obviously page 1, the average backlinks is about 6,000. Page 2 and 3 jumps way down to 11. So an average of only 11 drops down big time. But the not ranked ones jumps back up to about 1.8 thousand backlinks. So why might that be? That's a very interesting trend. Why is it that clearly the average backlinks on page 1 is super high, but the average backlinks on 2 or 3 is next to nothing, whereas the ones ranked, or the ones that are not ranked, jump more than page 2 or 3, but still significantly less than page 1. So my interpretation of that is, first, a handful of large sites can skew the results big time, but what I think is going on is that Google looks at the backlinks as well as how relevant, your content and stuff is. So if you have a combo of the two that are great, it'll rank you on page 1. Plus, there's some big authority type sites that have tons and tons and tons of backlinks that show up on page 1. So that's why they show those big authority sites on page 1 as well as the very relevant sites, which increases the average amount of backlinks by a ton. But on page 2 or 3, they don't really list the authority sites anymore. That's my hunch on that based upon the numbers here. So instead of looking at the authority sites for page 2 and 3, they look mostly at how relevant the content is at that point, and a lot less at the average backlinks. So they don't list the authority sites there. That's why the average backlinks only goes down to 11, with the median being 5. But on the not ranked sites, you see that the average backlinks is 1,800 backlinks, so way more than the average on page 2 or 3, which basically tells you that page 1 has, again, a lot of the authority type sites, and basically after that, they look to see if you still optimize your site for those terms, even if you're not an authority, and rank you right there. So I found that really interesting right there, that clearly that shows a trend that the larger authority sites, they tend to favor more on page 1, but also they want to make sure you have relevant keywords and content, and you want to use all the keyword and SEO stuff that we've been saying to get on page 1. So pretty cool stats and stuff right there. And again, I think the take-home message of that is, obviously target the keyword in your title, target it, in your descriptions, in your image alt takes and all the stuff right there. Even if there's places that say, oh, that stuff doesn't matter anymore, well, it clearly does right here. And another big take-home trend is, even if you're trying to rank for a certain keyword, there's a lot of additional partial keywords that you can rank for as well. I mean, and that's a large part is probably thanks to, like, if you do a search on Google, Google will oftentimes autofill a keyword. So even if it might not be the exact term that you search for, it might be a comparable term that, again, you can still get ranked for right there. So that's a pretty cool take-home message right there. And again, next week we'll basically be analyzing tons and tons and tons of competitor sites too, and we'll be breaking down the stats on that, and we'll get even more trends and stuff too. And what's really neat with this too is that the results that we see now could be different in a month or two, could be different in 6 months, and we'll be actually tracking this stuff on an ongoing basis. So the cool part is, if there's an algorithm change, we can kind of see a reflection of what's maybe changing right now in real time. Like, do they, like 3 months from now, will they care as much about an H tag? We'll be able to tell that stuff right there. And so far, I think we're the only guys that actually track the stuff as closely, as we do right here. So that's pretty cool stuff. So I'm just going to pause the screen as I go back to the PowerPoint. All right. So with that, guys, we'll move on to the Q&A, followed by the cash giveaway right after. And again, to partake in the giveaway, you want to make sure that you're a member of the Facebook group, which again you can get to if you go to getwebfire.com/FB group. And Sharon actually just put a post up there right now, which is basically asking if you've enjoyed the training call, and if you do a comment there, we'll pick a random winner off of that, and you'll win $100 cash on the spot today. So we'll do that in a few moments, but so make sure to go to getwebfire.com/FB group. Join the group if you have not yet, and if you are joined now, make sure to do a comment there, and I'll pick a winner of that in just a few moments. But right now, we'll go into the Q&A. And Sean, I know I've been talking a lot, so you've probably been reading and answering a handful of questions, but if there's any questions off the top of your head that you've seen while I was chatting, feel free to shout those out, and we'll try to get them answered.
All right, so definitely. So somebody first asked, which I thought was a wonderful question, because it does get a little confusing sometimes in the WebFire tools, but they said, wow, look at all these stats. It'd be great to be able to analyze my site with this same tool. Well, that's what the site analysis tool does, okay? I mean, so the site analysis tool is taking all this information, analyzing your site, and saying, hey, based upon best practices, here's what you need to improve about your site, whether it's on-page, backlinks, or whatever. But this is the data that proves that the site analysis tool is giving you the right feedback for your particular page that you're analyzing, because you're always analyzing a page more than actually an entire site. Hang on, so we did have some good questions. Okay, so Reg had this question, Brian, which we might need to get clarified slightly. Ready? They tried to upload a video that's in a WMV format because they wanted to edit the video and add text, but they were unable to do that because of the WMV format.
They want to edit the video and add text. So
I think they want to be able to add text to the video and record more parts to it, I believe.
Okay, so just basically clarify, there's two things that you can do with the video tool. One, you can make a video from scratch, and it'll be like PowerPoint or slide type style, where if you want to add like images or anything like that, you can add text on top of it. Or you can upload your own video if you just want to use the video submitter. I don't think you can add text on top of your existing video, if that's what you mean. I could check on that and see if that's possible or not, but if that's what you mean, that might be it. As far as the format goes, I'd have to double check with the tech guide to see all the formats that it accepts. But having said that, there's very easy ways to convert from one to another. So if that was the case, you could definitely get one that would work there. But yeah, I'd have to check with the tech guy to see what the restrictions are, because I usually don't use the that kind myself.
Okay, good. Then he had another question, and this goes to clarification of something, which is, would he rank better, assuming it's a he, if he purposely put 60% of the actual keyword in the title?
No. So what that's essentially saying is, okay, so let's say that your keyword is, weight loss diets for men. Okay? So if you target that keyword, somewhere in your title, you'll have a good chance of ranking for that exact term if it's not too competitive. But having said that, there's a lot of similar keywords to that might contain 60% or more of that term that you will rank for. And here's why, because I figured there might be a question or two like this, because there's guys that say, well, it looks like you're slightly more likely to rank if you have 60% or more, and that's not what it's actually saying, because for every main keyword, there's probably at least 10 partial keyword type phrases that would contain 60% or more. So it's more likely that just by the law of numbers, you'd be ranked for some partial matches too, if that makes sense, because you don't know if someone will do like an exact phrase search or a partial search. So you might rank for, let's say, 5 different terms, even though you're trying to target just one. So if you're ranked for 5, those other terms would be partial matches essentially. So that's why it looks like the number rises there. But no, you still would have a better chance of ranking if you target the exact phrase, but you'd still also have a good chance of ranking for partial matches too. And that's what's great about keywords, that one keyword oftentimes can actually get ranked for a variety of partial matches too.
Right. And by the way, for those of you that have only come online in the last couple of years or tried to do this stuff in the last couple of years, one of the reasons we know this, because you might be saying, well, how do we know that you're getting traffic from keywords that are not the keywords you're targeting? Well, number one, because you are, but number two, because once upon a time, back in the good old days, Google especially was very transparent, and when someone clicked to your site from a Google search, they would append the actual keyword that someone searched in the URL that they posted to your site, which means our stats programs could track that. So your keyword might be weight loss for men, and you would see that you're getting traffic for weight loss for men over 40, weight loss for men over 72, weight loss for men who live in Alabama and are 12 years old. I mean, you could see all of the crazy stuff that you're getting traffic from. That's what we would call a long tail search. It's different from just the short versions of what you think you're targeting or what you are targeting, but you're not just getting traffic on there, you're getting traffic on all this other stuff. So that's how we know factually that you're getting lots of stuff over and above what you think you're getting, and that you're ranking for all kinds of crazy keywords that aren't exactly what you're targeting. Okay, so this again is all factual. Let's see. Well, he left, so I'm not going to answer that question. So Bob asked Brian, how does structured data or schema markup affect your site?
So yeah, so one of the tools that we're working on for a new feature in Web Webfire's one that will help with just that. It will help with essentially a schema. And what that does is basically like saying it's where you basically tell Google a bit about all of your pages. And then what they basically do, if you've ever done like a search, a search and you've seen like the main link, but then immediately underneath it, you see like 3 or 4 or 5, related links to that same website. That's essentially what like a schema helps with. So it'll say, hey, if you're looking for, let's say Civil War cannons, there's a site that might sell Civil War cannons, but it might have like individual pages on the different types of cannons. So it will have the main link, and then it will break it down to like 4 or 5 almost like chapters or extra pages. So what's cool with that is that we've seen that you're more likely to rank, and on top of that, you take up more property or more space on page 1, so you're more likely to get clicks and stuff too.
All right, great. Jeanette wants to know, how much content would you suggest putting on a website you plan to sell? This is like a trick question, I realize. Something a lawyer would dream up.
Yeah, that's kind of like saying, how many gifts or how much should you spend on like a birthday gift. Yeah, it depends.
Hey, my birthday's coming up next month. I can answer that for you.
It really depends. I mean, so your question is, how much content should you throw up on a site that they're looking to sell? Well, so I guess the best way to basically answer that is, if your whole goal is to like make a site, possibly rank it and get sold, that's probably like a 2-part question, because I assume you mean you want to rank the site too and sell it, which is basically different than just selling a plain site. But I mean, in most cases, you want to have at least like several pages, on a site. Like I'd say at least 5 or so. And also at the same time, for a possible buyer, a 1-page site is probably viewed much, much differently than like a 5 or 10-page site. So obviously, the more contents and stuff you have, the higher the perceived value would be. Now, having said that, there's a major, major difference between a guy looking to buy like a $500 or $1,000 site compared to a guy looking to spend like 50 grand on a site. Obviously the 50 grand guy will want a lot more value than probably like, a couple pages, unless you rank for some really amazing terms. But yeah, so I mean, it just basically depends, but if you're trying to rank, I'd say shoot for at least like 5 pages.
All right, great. Martin asked this question, and we talked about this somewhat, but I can't remember if we talked about this today, because you and I talked about this right before the webinar, but some people suggest using the main keyword only once in the content. Others say 3% keyword density. What's your take on this?
So
and the factual answer is, Brian, I know you're excited about answering this one.
It depends. So according to our actual stats, about of the sites that rank on page 1, we've seen they use almost exactly 1%. It was 0.99%, whereas the ones that weren't ranked on page 1 used it less. Now, that's not to say you have to use it exactly 1% or anything like that. I don't think there's really an ideal range. I think there's kind of like a minimum, like, hey, use it at least once, because then it shows that your site is like relevant to that term, but don't overuse it where you're basically stuffing. But there clearly is a trend that if you actually use it, you're more likely to get ranked than if you don't. And the stats that you saw just moments ago showed that ones that did rank were higher, and they were around 1%. But that's not to say you have to have it exactly at that range. It just means there's probably a lot of sites that did not rank that don't really use the term much at all, if at all. So just make sure to basically use it, but don't overly use it where it doesn't read well, because they'll know if you're trying to stuff it, and if it does not flow well, you can get actually penalized in that too. Which actually could be a very good point where if you look at the stats, page 1 had the best keyword density of around 1%. Page 2 and 3 had significantly less, and not ranked had more than page 2 and 3 but less than page 1. And my hunch is that on the not ranked ones, it was probably a combo of those that didn't use the keyword at all and those that tried to stuff, a lot more, which is why there's probably, that trend that they see. But again, rule of thumb, use it, at least once, but don't try to overuse it at the same time.
Okay, great. And Bob asks, does an embedded video on page 1 make a difference in ranking? And Bob, you're talking about the main page of your site? Because obviously if you had a video that ranked on page 1, that would be a good thing. But assuming you're asking about embedding like a YouTube video on your site, it's not going to make a difference in ranking your page in terms of the content or anything else, but what it will make a difference with is both the potential bounce rate and the bounce speed of someone on your web page. So as we know, one of the things that Google measures is when they send somebody to your site for a specific keyword, how likely are they to come right back to Google as if, well, that was the wrong site, that didn't tell me what I wanted to know. But someone clicks through to your site and they start consuming your content, they see a video, they start watching the video, and they spend some time on your site. From Google's standpoint, that's really good. They sent someone to your site and that person stayed there and consumed the content even if they later go back to Google. So from a content standpoint, to keep someone on your site, keep it sticky, then that's a really good idea.
Well,
okay,
plus,
so different thing. Go ahead, Brian.
But yeah, plus on that note too, I mean, not just from like a content point, but like if you have a video and let's say the title is like, weight loss tips for men over 50, and you have the title, within the content of your page, and you have a video on it too, if they see that you have the content and the text, on it right there, yeah, I mean, you might be more likely to rank for that term, but it's not like they can read the video without any text and say, oh, this is clearly on this. So I mean, obviously if the titles match up and you have some text and stuff on your site, yeah, that can help. But I mean, by itself, as Sean said, I mean, it wouldn't really do a ton per se by itself, other than help, with the bounce rate and all that, and keeping guys on your site and engaged and all that too. But obviously too, if you have a relevant video and you have the titles and stuff around it that are relevant too, that can obviously help not only rank that page, but if you have the video on YouTube and stuff like that, you can rank the video there as well too.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So to everybody, if you want to post comments, we're going to answer this one question and then we will give away money. But let's answer Ken's question because he got knocked off and came back.
Okay.
So Ken says, aloha from Hawaii. Which WebFire resources specifically would be most helpful to improve visits to his Amazon listing for books, because he's got 31 books?
Okay, so I assume that they're probably his books and not affiliate type ones.
No. Yeah, these are he publishes books. Yes, his books.
Okay, well, a few things that you could do to start with is first, make sure, and this is relevant both on the Amazon side as well as on essentially the Google side. Make sure that the topic of your book or the keywords that you're trying to target, are either in the title or at least the description there. Because oftentimes there's guys that have like a book title that has nothing to do with the actual topic, and they also have a description that doesn't really match up either, which makes it very hard not only to rank for relevant terms, but also very hard to search and find you on essentially Amazon without knowing about you to start with. So that's one thing right there. And having said that too, depending upon what your end goal is, most authors out there, the end goal isn't to, or it should not be to get rich off of selling a book itself. It's oftentimes what you can do with the book where there's, if you start to find, forums and blogs and stuff that you can post on, you can basically use your book almost like a business card. Like if you have a book on, weight loss, let's say, and you start to go around on like forums and blogs and give weight loss tips and stuff like that, you could reinforce the fact that you're the author of such and such book, and people can find you that way as well. But definitely, I would try to have some kind of like a back end off of that as well, because as fun as it is to drive like $1 to $10 sales, if you have a back end where you're selling services or products that are worth way more, you're far more likely to land those kinds of clients and make your time more worthwhile there too. Unless there's anything you want to add to that too, Sean.
No, that's good. The other thing you want to do is, for example, you need to think about how all the strategies apply. So if you have a book about diabetes, a diabetes diet, right? So that helps somebody who's a diabetic, then you would want to go and find the places where people are talking about being diabetic and needing to know what to eat, because you've got a book about what they should be eating and recipes and diet plan and whatever for diabetics. And you could be going out to forums and blogs and Q&A sites and doing guest blog posts and everything else and feeding them right back to your Amazon site. Always remembering that Amazon has two parts to it. It's when you need to think about selling on Amazon. One is that, you can drive traffic and people will buy off Amazon because of the credibility of Amazon. But secondarily to that, the more sales you make on Amazon, the more sales that Amazon gives you, because it moves you up the bestseller ranks, right? Like we have a book, I don't even know if you know this, Brian, we just recently published our latest book and got a bunch of sales. But if you actually, I can't remember the data now, but one of the books we published like a year ago, last month had, I don't know how many dozens of buyers. It could have been more than 100 buyers. A lot more, but I didn't even realize it because I don't look at the stats ever. I only looked at them because I went in to look at the stats on the one we just released and found out that we were making sales and making money off a book. I didn't even realize that because, it just all happens automatically. It's fun. But, once you get on a bestseller list, as you start getting sales generated by Amazon. You don't care where they come from. So part of this all is that. The other thing that I would tell you about Amazon, and there's a webinar we did on how to generate a lot of Amazon sales, I don't know, a couple of years ago. It's in the archive of older webinars. So anybody trying to sell anything, their own CD, their own book, even fiction books, the whole webinar concept actually got started because I was at lunch with my wife, and it was a late lunch, and so we were like the only people in the restaurant. We started talking to the waiter, and it was like his last day or last week there because he was the lead guitarist and lead singer and the lead writer and the leader of like a death metal band or something truly that I would never ever listen to, especially at my age. Real nice guy, and he was about to leave his job because they'd finally put together their first CD that they were just about to release, and they were going on tour and whatever. And so it got me to thinking about, so let's say I'm about to launch something for which no one's searching, right? I mean, seriously, no one is searching for like new death metal band CD. I mean, except you guys are now running to Google to see so you can prove me wrong, right? But I mean, seriously, no one's doing this. So how do you get anybody's attention? So we did this webinar partly about that topic, but about how to push your way up Google or up Amazon. But one of the biggest things you got to realize is Amazon resets its sales stats generally every hour for every product, every book, all that stuff, all those bestseller lists. And so what you want to think about is, if you're going to make a big push, if you've got 31 books, you don't want to do one thing for each book every day. It's actually doing it backwards. What you would want to do is line up a lot of stuff for one of your products, one book, whatever, in this case, one book, and you want to do them all in as short a period as possible. Because if you send a burst of traffic that turns into a burst of buyers that bumps you up the Amazon bestseller list for whatever this is, in this case a book, then by definition, you'll get more traffic, results, notice, sharing, recommendations from Amazon for doing that. So, slow and steady wins the race. In other things, not in this case. In this case, you want to try to shoot up the list. So you'd want to focus on one book and bump it up. The other thing is if you got 31 books and some of them are doing good and some of them suck, the ones that are doing good, I'd actually focus on more getting up higher and getting more traffic to, because Amazon already likes them. They're already getting traffic. They're actually easier to push up than things that are not doing as well. Take what Amazon's giving you and make more out of it. So that's my 7 or 8 cents worth. So let's give away money.
All right. All right. So again, guys, go to getwebfire.com/FB group, and you'll see a post from Sharon, and leave a comment under right there, and we will get to that in a second. Oh, let me just, I'm finding an official way to do a random number generator here, Sean. I just got that. So, all right. So you'll want to go to this page right here, and again, instead of having to type in this long link, just go to getwebfire.com/FB group. I'll take you to this page right here, and then under this post right here, you'll just want to leave a comment, and you can just click comment and leave your comment there. And we'll give you guys about a minute, and then we will give $100 to a random person right there. So again, we'll give you another minute or two to leave your comment there, and also give credit to, I think there's a guy that left a comment just outside of it, so he left it right here. So we'll count that too. But yeah, and and thanks for that too. If I'm saying your name right, Tina. So yeah, so good.
Yeah, but you got to fix that typo when it says the Webfire time. You mean the Webfire team? You probably got auto-corrected.
All right.
It happens to me all the time. I spell better without the iPhone and the iPad's autocorrect.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, again, what I like to do, and I just kind of reiterate what was said here. There's a lot of people that state like opinions, and oftentimes the opinions aren't really based on any facts, which is kind of scary. It's oftentimes what you see like politicians do a lot. They'll state opinions, but not necessarily facts. Anything that I try to say, I try to back up with actual facts, and I try to base the opinions we have based upon some kind of actual facts. Because as stuff changes, we can kind of see based upon the facts what's actually working and what's not. And we're uniquely positioned where we can track all this stuff right here. So, unlike a bunch of other SEO experts and stuff like that, we can track all this stuff and see almost in real time, what the actual trends appear to basically be. So rather than just guessing based upon a hunch, we can, have a very educated guess based upon what the facts are basically saying. So with that, guys, I'll give you maybe another 10 seconds or so to give a comment right there. All right. So we'll do 10-second countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. As you guys can probably see, I'm being retargeted for a pressure washer. So that's kind of funny. Gotta love the retargeting. The driveway is getting dirty. All right. Let's just refresh it once more. All right. All right, so 30 comments on that, plus there's a few down here too. So let's see, I'll just refresh once more. All right, we have 30 right there plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 35 right there. So what we'll do, it looks like one may have just popped up too. So I'll give that person credit. Just got a little. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so 35 comments. What we'll do to keep it easy, usually I have Sean, pick a number. Last time I had share and help, just to have them be the mean person that denies the majority of people right there. So what I'll do is I'll do a random number generator. So what we'll do right here is, let's see, there's 35 comments so far, so I'll do 1 to 35. And just so you guys know, we're not like faking or making up anything. I'll click generate, and 33 is the winner. So that would be 2 up from the bottom. So that goes outside of the main post right there, 2 up from the bottom, or 3 up from the bottom. Wait, what? Yes, 3 up from the bottom, 35. Yep.
So wait, so who is given the stats information?
What's that?
Said who is just given all this detailed stats information with all this technical detail? Oh wait, that was you.
Yes, that was me.
Okay, so, just checking, because you're scaring me now.
So 3 up from the bottom, right here. So this would be right here. Jim Vrana. So if this is you, feel free to send us a quick note at support@webfire.com, or just message us here with your PayPal info, and we'll get you $100 off today. So again, just let us know where to send that, and we will send you $100. So with that, guys, thanks much. And again, if you have any other questions that pop up or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us at support@webfire.com or within the members area under the Help Desk Support tab. So, Sean, anything else you want to chime in and say before we wrap up until next week?
I think we got all the questions answered, unless we missed something along the way. We're all good. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. And again, go out, take action. You know what you need to do. Just go do it, because that's what's going to create all this success for you. So have an awesome week. We'll talk to you guys next week.
All right. Take care, guys.